When it comes to serial killers, perhaps there's none in real-life history that captures our imaginations like Jack the Ripper, because these murders were never solved. Jack the Ripper is the term given to a killer in Victorian London who killed women, mostly prostitutes, and was never caught. One day, the murders just stopped and never resumed, and the identity of the Ripper was never proven. To this day, people are always trying to figure it out, but with a list of over 100 suspects, and many decades having passed, the identity of the Ripper is one of those things we're going to have to get comfortable with not knowing. Well, doing a horror movie about Jack the Ripper isn't a bad idea, nor is it a very original idea, but how about a movie about his daughter? Now that's interesting. Hands of the Ripper is a movie from Hammer Horror which postulates that Jack the Ripper had a wife and daughter, and when his wife figured out who he was, he murdered her in front of his daughter. What happened to him after that is left out of the film, but his daughter, Anna, winds up an orphan, and then she's taken in by this crazy old bitch who basically treats her like shit. She's a fake psychic medium who holds seances, and has Anna hiding behind a curtain providing the voices of the spirit of her fictional dead granddaughter who would relay information from the departed. It was all a con that Anna was forced to be a part of, and if that wasn't bad enough, after the seances, the crusty old hag pimps her out to any pervert who wants to bang a pretty young virgin. Well, at least she's always advertised as a virgin. At one of these seances, a psychologist named John Pritchard figures out the con and leaves with his son, who is off to his bachelor party. So he takes the carriage. While Pritchard waits around for another, he witnesses Anna being prostituted to a member of Parliament. Then he sees the man running out after a scream. He goes in to find the old bitch murdered, but not just like stabbed or something. I mean, she got fucked up. Completely impaled with a poker, which was also driven through a heavy wooden door, an act of great force. Pritchard suspects that the man may have killed her, but lies to the police and gets him off the hook because he also thinks Anna might have done it, and he wants to figure out why. He's tired of a cycle of murder and execution, where people kill and then we kill them, and he wants to figure out why murderers do what they do. The man who witnessed the murder thinks that she was possessed, however, as her strength should not have been enough to perform such a task. Pritchard takes Anna home with him and basically adopts her. While his son is preparing to marry his fiancée, a blind woman, Anna seems all right, but she's triggered by flickering lights and reflections which puts her into a trance. And then a kiss, whatever kind of kiss, will throw her into a murderous rage and she kills someone. This happens a few times. The Parliament guy wants to turn her into the police as he believes it's wrong for these murders to go unpunished, but he capitulates to Pritchard's demands to let him study Anna because he doesn't want it to get out that he had solicited a young girl for prostitution. Anyway, the movie leaves it open at the end for a little bit of interpretation. It's revealed through a real psychic that she's the daughter of Jack the Ripper. But is she being possessed by the spirit of her murderous father when put into a vulnerable state? Or is she lashing out due to a disease of the mind brought on by the psychological trauma of seeing her mother murdered by her father at a young age? The movie seems to lean toward the supernatural way of thinking. After all, this is a Hammer film, but either way is a valid way of looking at it. This is a pretty great movie, as I'd expect from Hammer. The sets are lavish, the acting is spot on, and the scenes of horror are done really well, with plenty of blood and gore, but done in such a style as to be shocking without being overly gruesome. It's tame by today's standards, but that's a good thing as far as I'm concerned. When you start showing too much graphic violence, I think it detracts from the horror. What you see should be shocking, but the real horror comes from what you don't see. And while Hammer films were overly graphic at the time of their release, by today's standards they strike a nice balance between sensationalism and subtlety. I think the one thing that the film does wrong is that it should have given us more time to suspect that Anna was innocent. The reveal that she is indeed the killer happens almost right away, and although it leads to a lot of suspense because you wonder when she'll be triggered again to kill, I would have liked it more if you were led to doubt that she was the killer at all. Also, Pritchard is creepy. Most people from the Victorian era were creepy, but he's double creepy. At first he seems gallant. He rescues a poor traumatized girl from a bad life, and after her shitty benefactor was murdered, she's kept in a jail cell with a bunch of dirty whores, and he comes in and saves her. He gives her a nice home, he treats her well, but he seems to have an unsavory interest in her. He dresses her in his dead wife's old clothes and even walks in on her bathing once. And while he says that it's no big deal because he's too old to find that hot, come on, he clearly finds it hot. I mean, he does kiss her near the end, which sets her off again. And yes, it had been established that she needed to be kissed to go into Ripper mode, and yes, she needed to for plot reasons. He had her tied down to a table and restrained, and then he goes all full-on facehugger on her, while the previous kisses were all modest pecks on the cheek. Yeah, this dude's a perv. But I guess that's the Victorian era for you. Maybe I'm reading into it too much, who knows. Anyway, I highly recommend this film. Hammer had been known for remaking older horror films and then spinning those off into their own series. But a lot of their original films are great too, and this one is no exception. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10.